hope 2021 can be astronomically better than this asinine excuse of a year was, and I will stop at nothing to make sure that it is. I know I tend to be too optimistic for my own good a lot of the time, but I really feel this optimism isn't just something I need right now, but something all of us need. Like I said in the last video, some big changes are on the horizon with me. I might not even be ready yet.
Dude, 2021 was awesome. Hey guys, RanterInShades here, exercising my first Amendment rights vlog style. Happy New Year to you all. I'm now wearing a shirt of a band who put out a good album this year. Like, I love you a day to remember, but come on, you can do better and you know it. It feels weird having the best songs video come second again, considering how incredible 2021 was compared to last year for me. If you haven't seen my worst songs of KMAC 2021 list, the link will be in the description, as well as in the pullout card up there. I talked a good bit in the intro to Worst Songs about how great this year's been to me. As much as I was the least active I've been on YouTube since the 3-month-long break I took in 2017 due to general depression rising, I mentioned last year that changes were on the horizon, and much of this year was dedicated to that, among other swell things. I got my own apartment, got vaccinated, concerts finally came back, I got a new Fender HSS Player Series Strat along with some other nifty equipment, my vinyl collection grew a good bit, I got back into going to the gym, and I hit 4,000 subscribers and put out some of the best videos I've ever made. If I can be honest, ever since graduating college in 2016, the last few years have been an uncertain and confusing time period for me, though there were plenty of enjoyable highlights both off YouTube as well as on. This year was different. 2021 was a breath of fresh air. It was uplifting, exciting, everything I was determined at the end of 2020 to make this year. Obviously, there are parts of the puzzle that still require work, and yes, the damn mask mandate my area has going is one of them.
The COVID Delta Plus rewards program variant.
But that doesn't take away from how 2021 was the best year I've had in such a long time. So now let's celebrate this with part 2 of my yearly pop music evaluation, where I rip off every music reviewer ever and go over my top 10 favorite songs on this year's Billboard Year-End chart. While some people in the music review community have their own criteria, such as the song being released in the calendar year or even the chart year, don't ask me to explain how that works, or the song needing to have charted at a certain position or higher or be on the chart for a certain number of weeks, my only criteria is that it has to be on the year-end chart, which is linked in the description if you want to double check and make sure I'm not bullshitting. So let's talk about some pop songs I really liked this year. Also, I'm doing the album rundown at the end of the video since the intro is already pretty lengthy and I'm sure people would rather I just get to the list, so stay tuned for that. Alright, on with the show. Number 10. Regular viewers of my channel know that I'm something of a rock-focused channel that doesn't exactly confine himself to just a single lane. So when I make these best and worst songs videos every year, I'm essentially analyzing pop music from the perspective of someone that primarily listens to guitar music. This is basically what made Ed Sheeran an easy artist to get into, since I can appreciate his brand of simple, catchy songwriting in addition to the personality he brings. As much as I've enjoyed his albums, I've been hearing a lot of mixed things about Ed as of late. His stuff has gotten poppier over the years, but it was never in a way that left me feeling alienated. I was interested when Equals was announced and found it to be a decent listen upon release. Bad Habits might not be the most groundbreaking thing Ed's ever put out, but for a simple pop song, I enjoyed it. I get some nice early to mid 80s vibes from the instrumentation, and it sounds like the kind of thing that would make for a cool driving song. Lyrically, this is definitely nothing extraordinary. It's another song that compares love to an addiction, but it gets a bit descriptive in the chorus where it kind of sounds like Ed's describing a drug trip of sorts, which you don't need me to tell you is definitely a bad habit.
Drugs are bad. You shouldn't do drugs.
The lyrics in the verses are simple enough that you can attribute a dual meaning with both drugs and romance, which is kind of confusing with regards to the whole song, but it sounds fun enough that I can't really bring myself to care. It's a fun tune from a guy who knows how to write some catchy shit. I'm glad he was able to rebound after that shitty collab album thing that I refuse to accept as canon, kind of like Lulu. Number 9. Dude, you want to know something hilarious? This song, called Butter, is number 11 on the year-end chart, and whenever I do a countdown with more than 10 entries, I have that recurring gag where I throw up the picture of Butters wearing the number 11 shirt from the episode of South Park about the list ranking the guys on their looks. This is totally not intentional at all on their part, but I love that this happened. This is another song I've heard a lot of dissent towards for not being anything special, basically Dynamite Part 2, and I'm just sitting here going, that's a bad thing? Dynamite was fucking awesome, so wouldn't you want your next big hit to be of the same ilk? Like, I'm not gonna argue that Butter is better than Dynamite, but I definitely see it as a worthy follow-up. Unfortunately, that also does mean BTS's English is a bit broken in some areas, like here.
When I look in the mirror, I'll melt your heart into two.
How is it her heart that's melting into when you're the one looking in the mirror? Wouldn't you just be melting your own heart then? How narcissistic. But you're not listening to BTS for good grammar. You're listening for funky beats, big choruses, and charisma out the wazoo. Also, there's a name dropping of Usher that's kind of forced sounding. Along with liking how the song's in A-flat major, I'm hearing some talkbox in the second chorus, as well as the lead-in after the rap verse into the final chorus. Much like they did in Dynamite, BTS is showing how hard they go when constructing a fun pop song. Everything just sounds so buttery. And I can definitely see why this Korean boy band is as worshipped as they are. I have a feeling future hits from them are probably going to sound like this, but I'm hopeful that it won't end up being another instance of a group falling victim to what I like to call the AC/DC effect. Number 8. Doja Cat, someone with a name that makes me think of someone wearing a really fluffy fursuit of a pink cat, was a big breakout artist last year. I remember thinking Say So was a pretty fun song. No, obviously not the remix that Nicki Minaj essentially shat all over. As much as I enjoyed its sugariness, it was one of those songs I didn't have room for on my best songs list last year, along with not feeling as strongly about it as I did with the 10 songs I did talk about. But here we have Kiss Me More, a song that while certainly sugary itself, doesn't make me feel like I'm being doused in a pile of sugar like I kind of felt about Say So. As is to be expected, a pop song being funky is a great way to get my attention. The chord progression makes me think a lot about 24K Magic by Bruno Mars, and given that that's my favorite song of Bruno's, resembling it will definitely make my head turn. Doja Cat's vocals are also really sweet sounding, and whenever I hear her harmony vocals in the chorus, I feel like I'm having a craving for some candy. And since she's singing about wanting to be kissed, I feel like that juicy taste is within reach. That sounds really creepy to say out loud. And her rapping ability isn't too bad either. With how much I've complained about Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, and Megan Thee Stallion on my channel, it's really refreshing to see a female pop rapper that doesn't come across as too overbearing and in your face like they're known to do. The most out there she gets in her verse is saying,
I feel like fucking something. Niggas wishing that the pussy was a kissing booth.
While the rest of her verse has more of a playful vibe, like she isn't trying to make her man feel uncomfortable. The guest verse from SZA, who I'm not sure has any relation to RZA and Jizza from Wu-Tang Clan, does get a little more out there.
Pussy like holy grail, know that. All this ass for real. Drama make you feel. Fantasy with a bill. It's all I can give you.
Jesus, where did the whip come from? There are moments in her verse where she teeters on domineering, but I suppose that could be seen as a natural progression from simple kissing since she doesn't really allude to kissing at all. But her voice is also really nice sounding. It fits just as well with this groove as Doja's does, so it's not coming off as off-putting to me. Kiss Me More is a really satisfying listen. It's got the funk I like hearing with some added zing. Doja Cat has definitely succeeded at making a good impression on me, and I'm happy for that. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna eat some candy. This is everything I imagined it would taste like from listening to the song. Holy shit. Number 7. And people think rock is dead? I'm not really in the know about Eurovision. But that's where this Italian glam rock band called
Måneskin,
which, yes, I did need to look up how to pronounce that because I'm an ignorant American man, got their big break by winning, not too dissimilarly to artists that get their big break through being on shows like American Idol or X Factor. Along with that, we also have our good old pal TikTok to thank for really getting the song out there. I mean, if that platform can make Dreams by Fleetwood Mac a hit again after 43 years, I guess anything's possible. Me being someone who primarily listens to rock, you can only imagine my reaction to a rock song becoming a Billboard hit because it's not something we really see a lot these days. And that could just be some generous wording there. If you've seen my Why I Hate the Rock is Dead argument video, you'd also know that I champion the idea of rock bands reaching this level of success even if they have to utilize things like TikTok or go on a show like Eurovision. That by itself I see less as selling out, but more so making the kinds of moves that will not only ensure your own success as a band, but are also benefiting rock as a whole. If you let go of the idea that this makes you less rock, it'll help the genre as a whole get out of a place of stagnation. So this is a big deal, and that's why I felt it absolutely necessary to include Beggin' in this video. And best of all, this isn't the only rock song on this list. The song is actually a cover originally by the Four Seasons in 1967, and
Måneskin,
this version was actually originally released as a single in 2017. I do get some novelty vibes, and I am reminded a little of those garage rock revival bands that got popular in the first half of the 2000s, but make no mistake, I like what I'm hearing. I love the drumming, the bass work is really standout, the guitars are funky, and I like the raspy, soulful vocals from Damiano David. He really ups his prowess in the second verse when the lyrics start flying at you. I also really love the softer parts in the song where the drummer plays cross stick on the rim and the guitar does single string picking. It's really dynamic. People wanting rock to come back, I think, are really gonna like this band since they have the kinds of elements that they see as lacking in a lot of today's bands. Do I think this is gonna create a trend in pop music?
No.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't skeptical that
Moan the skin.
will become rock's next big hit machine, but I do see the success of Beggin' showing that newer rock bands do have the potential to reach this level of mainstream success. Even if this might not be the kind of rock that's my main go-to, I'm beyond happy that this song became a hit. Speaking of being happy, number 6. With how much of a smash When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go was, along with how much I cherished the crap out of Everything I Wanted, I was looking forward to what Billie Eilish would do next, especially since she's known for being pretty unpredictable, unconventional, and being quite all over the place emotionally. I found the album she put out this year, Happier Than Ever, to be a good step up, and I consider it to be my favorite album of hers. And while Therefore I Am is certainly okay, the title track on the album blows it out the water. The album Happier Than Ever essentially tells a story about how Billie's life has changed since releasing her debut. She talks about getting out of a toxic relationship, going in an upward spiral, all culminating in the title track towards the end, where she finally makes it abundantly clear that she's happier than ever. She described the song as therapeutic, and listening to a song like this, it's quite empowering and gives a feeling of ascension. And after a year like 2020, after the year I myself had, I see this as a nice summing up of what 2021 was. I too experienced a downward spiral, and at this point in time, even while knowing this year wasn't perfect, I too can say with full confidence that I'm happier than ever too. And that just makes me want to give Billie the biggest hug. She looks like she gives really nice hugs. Don't get me fucking started on what happens midway through the song. We hear some palm-muted guitars in the second verse, and then it just explodes. Happier Than Ever is basically Billie Eilish's Stairway to Heaven, where it starts out somber and builds up to this big crescendo moment. And in the context of the song, while she's lamenting about that toxic relationship, you can tell she feels magnificently liberated and just wants to shout from the rooftops how amazing things are for her now. Although the production sounds a bit grimy, this ending is brilliant. Everything I Wanted is still my favorite song of Billie's, but Happier Than Ever skyrocketed its way to number 2. My mind was legitimately blown when I first heard how big of a sound it had. If this is a summing up of where she is nowadays, I hope she continues to go up like she deserves to. Number 5. The Weeknd is still riding high from the monstrosity of a success that is Blinding Fucking Lights, which dethroned by Chubby Checker as the most successful Billboard Hot 100 single of all time. Not to mention, it's number 3 on this year's year-end chart, which says a lot about its staying power. Am I complaining? No! I still love that song dearly, and that solo treatment I gave it last year is still one of my favorite things I've ever composed. But as is basically a rule for my year-end videos, I never feature a song twice on the main list because that would be a cop-out on my end. But that's okay. Weeknd has plenty of other good songs, and while Save Your Tears, the song that beat out Blinding Lights for the number 2 spot on the chart, is a solid tune, the song I want to talk about that I liked a fair bit better is Take My Breath. Abel's basically riding this 80s throwback wave, and I am here for it. It's funky, it's got a cool progression, it's got that big synth sound. Everything I could want in a Weeknd song is here. It's a lot like Can't Feel My Face as far as the feel goes, where you feel like you're at a top-of-the-line party with the vibe it's setting. With songs like this, The Weeknd went from an artist I thought was pretty cool to an artist I have such a blast listening to. Even if it might feel like he's narrowing in on this 80s throwback niche since he struck so much gold with it last year, again, I ain't complaining. Lyrically, Take My Breath is pretty similar to Blinding Lights if you think about it. They're both really adventurous and talk about flirting with danger and being on such a high. And unlike with Bad Habits, Abel is shameless about it because there's nothing else he'd rather do. He lives for this, just like I live for this jam. I really don't know what else to say. This song is so much fun. Don't get me wrong, Blinding Lights has proven itself to be timeless so far, but I hope we can continue to build off of that momentum some more with bangers like this. Number 4. Ariana Grande's been on a pretty consistent streak of album releases these past few years, from Sweetener to Thank You Next to her most recent album, Positions. While I'm not sure it stacks up super well against the former two, there's some pretty sexy cuts, like the song I'm picking to talk about, POV. As is to be expected from Ariana, her singing is angelic and exquisite, especially in the final chorus, where she gets belty and you're like, oof, yes! Even the backing vocals are really lush and complement the mood of the song excellently. The instrumentation makes you feel like you're on a cloud ascending to the sky, but I also feel a bit of uncertainty in the progression, namely in the chorus, where there's a G dominant 7 followed by a C minor, which is a chord change I've always been a major sucker for. The thing I really love about POV is that it's in character for what Ariana laid out in the last song of hers I talked about, Breathin', only this time it's in the context of her relationship with the lucky son of a bitch that was next in line in Thank You Next. She isn't 100% confident and secure with herself and is still working on this flaw, but knows that she's getting better with time. She goes as far as to say that she wishes she could see herself the way her partner sees her, which is an extremely profound thing for someone with depression to say. When I talked about Breathin' in 2019, I talked about how these feelings Ariana expresses are words I can relate to. I might not straight up hate myself and see absolutely no value in myself, but a lot of the time I think to myself about how I don't think I'm the best looking guy out there, or that there are things about me that everybody hates, and an assortment of other flaws I see in me. But the thing is,
everybody deserves to be loved.
You might not believe that. You may see yourself as a complete piece of shit no one should give any time of day for, but deep down, you know this is true. Someone will give you the validation you deserve and see you for who you are, even if they have to beat you over the head saying you matter. It's almost like this is the reason I love Schaeferless Productions' Shrek 2 video so much. So while this could never replace Breathin' as being my favorite song of Ariana's, I'm glad it exists. Number 3. Yeah, you knew this was going to be high on this. You know, ever since Bruno Mars came out with 24K Magic in 2016, I found myself feeling starved for new music from him in the following years. I mean, the fact that I had a track from that album be my number 1 2 years in a row should be pretty telling of how important Bruno is to me. So when I heard he finally dropped new music this year, I was pleasantly surprised at what exactly this music was in the form of. He teamed up with rapper and drummer Anderson .Paak to form a funk R&B super duo called Silk Sonic, which that name just makes me think of the world's softest Sonic plushie. I've always found Anderson .Paak to be one of the more talented hip-hop personalities in recent years. While there's not really any rapping on Silk Sonic's debut and Evening with Silk Sonic, his bare-bone talents not only show in his performance, but they match that of Bruno, which is what I always thought was the coolest thing about this project. They sound like two bros coming together to make some sexy tunes and not having a care for if it's the most original sound ever, because they just want to have fun with it. And that's honestly kind of inspiring. Leave the Door Open was the first single from this duo and was a very early contender for the upper half of this list. This song is so sexy sounding, it sounds like it would make for primo material to throw on when you and a partner are alone. It's got a similar kind of comfortable vibe that I talked about with Bruno's song Versace on the Floor, that sweet kind of sexy. Though with this line, I'm like, okay, not sure we needed to know that. The instrumentation is also awesome. The keyboards sound really lush, the bass tone is really smooth, and Anderson's drumming is very in the pocket, and he brings out some pretty cool fills at a lot of points. I also love the key change that takes place in the pre-chorus that sounds like you're being lifted into the atmosphere. Same within the bridge and the outro, where Bruno throws in some la-la-las. The final chorus has that kind of key change that I just get really excited over, hearing it get brought to an even bigger height. I just cannot get enough of this. For as much as we could argue whether or not it's productive to have a throwback sound rather than innovate a new sound, you can't deny Bruno Mars knows a thing or two about making some rich sounding funk and R&B, all the while oozing with personality and charisma, which that's what makes him my favorite current pop artist. I highly recommend checking out the rest of Silk Sonic's album, particularly the tracks After Last Night, Smoking Out the Window, Skate, and Blast Off. I hope I'm not being kept waiting too long for whatever Bruno does next, whether it be solo or with Silk Sonic, because even something like Leave the Door Open gives me so much to look forward to. Number 2. One of my favorite things about my Best Songs video from last year was talking about being won over by Dua Lipa, an artist who initially didn't make the greatest impression on me. Levitating is actually my favorite song of Dua's, and given that it came out pretty late last year, I knew this was going to be a carryover into the next year, like the stuff I usually talk about in the honorable mentions. What I was not expecting was that it would be the number 1 song of the year. With all the hype surrounding Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo and the records it broke, I was anticipating that would be the song of the year, and I'd be like, ugh, great. So this is another one of those times where I'm really happy about being wrong. The reason this is my favorite song of hers is because it takes everything I liked about Don't Start Now and Break My Heart and creates the best possible sound. We can hear the bass do some funky slap shit, I like the way the guitar and synth sound in the mix, and the vocals are really clear and precise. The song's not trying to be something super over the top, and that kind of makes it more appealing to me. 2018 Shades, you were a really naive fool with this one. If New Rules showcases Dua recuperating after the end of a relationship, and Break My Heart showcases her flirting with something new, Levitating functions as the payoff, and that's something that's just really cool to see. For as much as I felt New Rules was kind of uptight about her thought process, talking about Break My Heart last year showed me that I really just wanted her to be happy, and that's what I feel like we're getting here. She's letting loose and being honest with herself, saying, yeah, I want this. And the song sounds like a celebration of that. She's even confident in herself to rap in the bridge, and we get to hear hints of her English accent. Yeah, DaBaby, you can go away. We don't need you here. That's not even me alluding to the rant he went on. The song literally doesn't need him. Levitating is fun as hell. I'm glad the song had the staying power that it did, because I can't think of a more deserving song for the #1 spot on 2021's year-end chart. And yet, there's one song that I think represents something even more special. But before we get to that, I have one song I want to talk about that I'm anticipating will carry over into next year that I'm going to use the honorable mention slot to bookmark before I talk about it then. This song would be Easy on Me, not to be confused with that pretty cool commentary YouTuber that apparently deleted all his videos, by Adele. If there's anything that Hello taught me back in 2015, it's to never underestimate Adele, no matter how big the gaps are between her releases. She's more than proven that her success wasn't a fluke like some of the people I've rooted for in this series. Easy on Me is a pretty textbook Adele piano ballad about a breakup, but it's such a lovely listen that I can't really bring myself to complain. I mean, come on, how could I? Her singing is as angelic as ever, especially in the bridge, and I always have to smile a little at that little descending flutter she does in the chorus. Even if it does make me think of this. Thanks, Become the Night. Now I can't unhear that. There's also something really uplifting about F major, but I do wish the song builds to more of a huge crescendo like in When We Were Young, beyond this part anyway. Her album 30 as a whole, which she demands you listen to the tracks in the very specific order they're in, which most normal people do anyway, touches a lot on the changes that have taken place in Adele's life, such as her divorce. But even amidst alluding to her role and faults and why these changes took place, and sprinkling some pessimism for where she can go from here, even a line like, "I know there is hope in these waters," shows that she knows better, which in my opinion is really powerful. It's actually not too dissimilar from Happier Than Ever if you think about it, and that's where I hope Adele can bring herself, especially when the time comes for this song to make next year's year-end chart, and I can talk about it more. For now, let's get to my #1. Come on, remember whose channel this is. You know I'm a major pop-punk fanatic. How could I not put this at #1? I spoke a good bit in Worst Songs of 2021 about how underwhelmed and sour, pardon the pun, I was with Driver's License, and how I found it to be nothing really special at all. The song also seemed to have an aura of being one of those cute little novelty tunes going for it, and much like I did with Lil Nas X in 2019, I assumed Olivia Rodrigo would be another one-hit wonder with not an incredible amount of staying power and people not really caring about her other material. You can only imagine how shocked I was, not only at how Good For You ended up overshadowing Driver's License, let alone Olivia managing to have other hits like this, Deja Vu, and Brutal, but also that it actually rocks. What actually influenced me to give Good For You and her album Sour a listen was my senpai Tyler Larson of Music Is Win making a video comparing the song to Misery Business by Paramore a while before everyone else started making the comparison, where he does this. I'd actually gotten into Paramore's first 3 albums last year after being kind of hesitant about it for reasons I can barely remember, and that comparison helped me to see the potential in Olivia that I do today. Obviously, I don't think Good For You is a ripoff of Misery Business. It's a pretty common chord progression, and I have a whole video on my channel about this concept that I highly encourage you to check out if you haven't seen it. That'll help you understand why I feel this way. If I could compare the song itself to anything, one song that comes to mind is Behind These Hazel Eyes by Kelly Clarkson, this in-your-face rocker that serves as a middle finger to an ex. I mentioned in Worst Songs when talking about Trader that the majority of Olivia's album is comprised of breakup ballads like Driver's License. Good For You stands out not just because it rocks the hardest, but because it does a better job matching the pissed-sounding mood of the lyrics. It doesn't sound as much like the whiny venting and delusions of an immature high school girl that those ballads came off as, and that's why this song works a lot better. Not to mention, what the average person might see as a genuine well-wish, kind of like what I did in last year's Worst Songs when talking about I Hope, is actually a little sarcastic zing. She's not saying,
"Oh, good for you, I'm glad you're doing better."
It's actually more like,
"Oh, good for you, you fuckface."
She says in the bridge that the fact that the guy doesn't care at all about how she's doing is like salt being rubbed in a wound. But the way I see it, Olivia being sarcastic when telling him good for you stings equally as hard. It's kind of like when someone gives you the I'm fine treatment, and I get the impression this guy is too stupid and into himself to understand that. But here's the real reason why I'm putting this song at number 1. I've talked a lot on this channel about the rock is dead argument and why I think it's bullshit, even despite believing there are definitely areas it could stand to improve in, which I also touched a little on earlier in this video in the begging segment. Good for You being as huge as it was this year isn't a big deal just because it's a pop punk song and I love pop punk, nor is it just because of how much of a breath of fresh air it was seeing a rock song being a chart topper, but because of the potential it represents. I talked in my Machine Gun Kelly video about how he and the new wave of rappers turned pop punkers can function as a gateway for younger people to get into the genre, even if they might not be my thing personally, as well as serve as a vehicle for the stuff to be Billboard mainstream again, and I see Olivia Rodrigo functioning the same way. In addition to that, people will hear this stuff and get a spark of motivation to take a deep dive into the world of pop punk, and maybe even become inspired to make the music themselves, and that's why I couldn't be happier that the song was as big of a hit as it was. I also see Good For You showing Olivia's true potential as an artist as well. Remember how I mentioned finding the majority of her album to be redundant packaging of driver's license? I think it would benefit her so much if she made more songs like this. It would not only show that she isn't a one-trick pony that only wants to write sad breakup ballads about a high school boyfriend, but it would be a way for her to sprout her wings and gain more respect from rock fans like me if this sound was explored more and maybe even expanded upon. Kind of like what my favorite band, Alter Bridge, did when they left their original label, Wind Up Records, and followed up their radio-friendly debut, One Day Remains, with the heavier and more critically acclaimed Blackbird. And to demonstrate this, let's give this a little solo treatment of my own. My only criticisms of the song are how weird the backing vocals sound, how I wish the drums sounded a little punchier, which I guess is why so many of the rappers turned pop punkers hire Travis Barker for the job, because he's totally the only pop punk drummer that exists, and how I wish the song were a half step lower so it could be an A flat major rather than A major, because that key is cooler in my opinion. But otherwise, by making this song, Olivia Rodrigo is making the moves I never thought possible to make pop music great again. In addition to the songs I talked about in this video being great, 2021 was an enjoyable year for albums as well, including but not limited to, in a somewhat accurate order of enjoyment, Greta Van Fleet's The Battle at Garden's Gate, Meet Me at the Altar's Model Citizen, Evanescence's The Bitter Truth, With Confidence's Self-Titled, Love Bites' Glory Glory to the World, The Devil Wears Prada's Z2, The Jukebox Romantics' Fires Forming, Bad Wolves' Dear Monsters, 21 Pilots' Scaled and Icy, Escape the Fates' Chemical Warfare, Mammoth WVH's Self-Titled, The Deer Hunters' The Indigo Child, Jonathan Young's Starship Velociraptor, Invent Animates' The Sun Sleeps as If It Never Was, Vendid's What Is It, Kill It, Frontier's Oxidized, Ed Sheeran's Equals, Orbiculture's Shaman, Christone Kingfish Ingram's 662, Heart Attack Man's Thoughts and Prayers, NF's Clouds the Mixtape, Dirty Honey's Self-Titled, Tyler the Creator's Call Me If You Get Lost, Dark Horse White Horse's Self-Titled, Evile's Hell Unleashed, Walk the Moon's Heights, Jerry Cantrell's Brighton, Wheels' Resident Human, Phantom Elite's
Titanium?
Bliss and Esso's The Sun, the band Camino's Self-Titled, Can't Swim's Change of Plans, Silent Planet's Iridescent, Boy Hero's Recall, Devil Sold His Soul's Lost, Starset's Horizons, Scythe Lord's Earth-Boiling Dystopia, Waterpark's Greatest Hits. By the way, can bands please not call a studio album Greatest Hits? Really bold of you to assume all these tracks are your greatest hits. Bad Flowers' This Is How the World Ends, John Mayer's Sobrock, Interloper's Search Party and A Revenant Legacy, The End Machine's Phase 2, See You Space Cowboys' The Romance of Affliction, Gus G's Quantum Leap, Manchester Orchestra's The Million Masks of God, Billie Eilish's Happier Than Ever, Moron Police's The Stranger and the High Tide, Tetrarch's Unstable, Pentakill's 3 Lost Chapter, Every Time I Die's Radical, Wage War's Manic, Beast in Black's Dark Connection, Volume's Happier, Mayday Parade's What It Means to Fall Apart, Fractal Universe's The Impassable Horizon, Ad Infinitum's Chapter 2 Legacy, Red Fang's Arrows, Wet's Retransmission,
Chuck! Lois! Captain Chunk!
Gone Are the Good Days, Miles Kennedy's The Ides of March, Iaton's Access All Worlds, Citizen's Life in Your Glass World, Paul Wardenham's Cybergenesis, Real Friends Torn in Two, Ola Englund's Starzinger, Sungazer's Perihelion, Sleep Token's This Place Will Become Your Tomb, Vola's Witness, Pentrol's What Lies Ahead of Us, Soen's Imperial, Tiger's Jaws I Won't Care How You Remember Me, Don Broco's Amazing Things, 12-Foot Ninja's Vengeance, I Built the Skies Coalesce with Jake Howsam Low, Light the Torches You'll Be the Death of Me, Hacktivist's Hyperdialect, Dylan Furr's The Final Return, Foxing's Draw Down the Moon, Trivium's In the Court of the Dragon, Beartooth's Below, The Pretty Reckless's Death by Rock and Roll, Wolf Alice's Blue Weekend, Turnstile's Glow On, Situ-A's Senpai 3, Scale the Summit's Subjects, Love and Death's Perfectly Preserved, Scion's Self-Titled, Mastodon's Hushed and Grim, Adele's 30, Knocked Loose's A Tear in the Fabric of Life, The Raven Age's Exile, Thank You Scientists' Plague Accommodations, Cynic's Ascension Codes, Silk Sonic's An Evening with Silk Sonic, Aeon Zen's Transversal, Crusade's Rising Visionary, Foo Fighters' Menaced at Midnight, Praise Jesus, Grayscale's Umbra, Project Mishram's Meso, Dream Theater's A View from the Top of the World, Gemini Syndrome's Third Degree, The Raising, Termina's Dysphoria, Between the Buried in Me's Colors 2, Epica's Omega, Born of Osiris's Angel or Alien, Ice Nine Kills The Silver Scream 2, Welcome to Horrorwood, Ginger's Wallflower, Trash Boat's Don't You Feel Amazing, Times of Grace's Songs of Loss and Separation, Whitechapel's Kin, Lepros's Aphelion, Architects for Those That Wish to Exist, Rise Against's Nowhere Generation, Bullet for My Valentine's Self-Titled, Chevelle's Near Atias, Rivers of Nile's The Work, The Omnific's Escapades, Tremonti's Marching in Time, Spirit Box's Eternal Blue, Gojira's Fortitude, Era's Self-Titled, and my favorite for this year, from the band that was number 2 on my list of bands I'd love to see reunite, Liquid Tension Experiment's Liquid Tension Experiment 3. I don't just do this to flex my music taste, what I thought were good albums that came out this year, how up to date I try to be on albums, or even how much of my year is dedicated to music listening. I do this to give music recommendations that I believe in, and to put word out about these albums for anyone not in the know of them or the artists that recorded them. The way I see it, someone out there is sure to be interested. Like I said, 2021 was the best year I've had in a long time, and I'm proud of all that I accomplished this year. I truly believe 2022 can only go up, so let's do what we can to make that happen. One thing that will contribute to that is a little something in the vein of this that I have planned for next year, so be on the lookout for when I put that out. Other than that, thank you very much for watching this video, take care, and have a nice day. I'm Shades, and I'll see you next time. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling
22